The Wave and the Wing by James R. Salazar. My name is Tom McLean. I'm 10 years old today. I live with my mother and father on Victoria Street in Eastwood in Rollingham, England. We live not far from the pits, where father works at Brinkley Colliery. Down where the earth is always dark and wet, and the lamps swing like stars above the men's heads. My mother says I'm not going down the mines when I'm grown, and my father says the same. Today is my birthday, and tonight we sit by the fire, and we could hear the cold wind blow outside. The smoke of the fireplace painted pictures on the ceiling. Father sat in his chair by the fire with his boots still on. There was coal dust in the creases of his hands. He asked me to sit on the chair opposite him. It seemed he had something to tell me. He said, "Tom, there are things that shine in this world, but they all don't belong in men's pockets." He stared at the fire for a long while. I thought he was going to talk of the mines again, of how the roof groans and timbers creak in the dark coal mines underneath. But instead he said, "I wanted to tell you 2 stories tonight, and they're really the same if you listen proper." He said his mother would tell him stories when he was a child, and he began, "Once there was a seagull named Christine and a fish named Michael, and they lived near Lott's Cove in Dorset, where the rocks are sharp as old teeth and the water is clear as glass." He told me how one night a storm came in off the channel, raging in the sky and smashing the waves against the rocks. When the storm was over, Christine, the seagull, lay on the rocks by the tide pools, with her feathers torn, her wings hanging twisted, and the white of her chest stained with salt and blood. She could not fly, not even a hop. She just lay there breathing in little sharp breaths, watching the water rise and fall. There in the pool below her lived Michael, the silverfish with eyes bright and shiny. He had watched the storm from under the waves, and now he watched the broken bird above him. Fish aren't meant to care for birds, and birds aren't meant to spare fish. But sometimes the world doesn't always remember its own rules. The silverfish began to bring Christine food. Little fishes, bit of crab and soft things he could push up where the water lapped at the rocks. Christine would edge herself close and snap them up, too weak even to thank him at first. Then, as the days turned into weeks, they began to talk in their own way, her with small cries and tilts of her head. Michael spoke with flashes of silver and circles drawn in the water. Christine told stories of clouds and cliffs and far harbors she had seen, and Michael spoke of dark seaweed forests and cold, deep indigo places he had swum through. The other seagulls laughed and taunted Christine, calling her a mad bird. "Who do you think you are, Christine?" they squawked. They jeered, wheeling and whirling above the unlikely friendship. They would squawk, "You'll starve down there," with him. But Christine would not leave. Her wing was still healing, and Christine knew Michael was somehow her friend. As her wing mended, they lived in a kind of miracle. They would laugh and play beneath the sun in the clouds. They would race to see who was quickest. He would swim just under the surface, and she would fly just above him, gliding along. Sometimes she would trail the tip of her wing in the water, and he would brush his back against the shadow of her beneath the waves. As their friendship grew, she brought him floating treasures, feathers, driftwood, while he gave her glints of shells, pearls, and gold coins from some ancient Greek ship. One night, when the sea was calm, Christine would land on a piece of driftwood, and Michael would circle below. Together they watched the moon path shimmer across both their worlds. During storms, Christine would warn Michael of oncoming dangers by crying from above, while he guided her to calmer coves when she was weary from the wind. One night when Michael and Christine were close to sleep, Christine by the tide pools, she tucked her head beneath her wing the taste of salt still in her feathers, beneath her, and Michael drifted close to the surface where moonlight trembled on the water, a light he could never touch. Sleep drew them together at the same hour, and they both fell asleep, and in a dream the waves and the air became one, a quiet space. In that in-between, she found herself sinking without fear, her wings folding into motion like fins, and he rose through the water without effort, his body remembering something older than the sea. They met where neither sky nor sea had a name, no sound, the rhythm of two beings, discovering they were not separate. Christine circled him once. Christine spoke. "When I look down, I see you rising, and the water isn't water anymore. It's the air between us," Michael said. "I swim upward until everything burns cold. I think if I break the surface, I'll vanish. Maybe that's what love asks, to vanish into the other," Michael said. "In the dream, I almost touched your wing. It felt like touching the light." Christine said, "It was not a dream. You are there. And I felt your movement inside my feathers." Then Michael said, "Then we are both mad." "No," Christine said. "We are the moment before the tide changes. You below and I above, held by the pool." The next day, as the morning sun rose, a fishing boat arrived near Michael's reef. A fisherman cast his net too close to the rocks, and the weights dropped and the net swept through the pool, and Michael was caught up in it, thrashing and flashing in the green light. Christine saw Michael struggling in the net, from high above, his silver body beating against the net, and something wild broke open in Christine's chest. She flung herself down through the air. She did not think. She swooped and screeched and pecked at the fisherman's hands and face, driving at him again and again, until he cursed and flung his hand to chase the seagull away. But as he lifted his arm to shield his eyes, the net slipped, and the weight of the catch fell back to the sea, and Michael tumbled free once again. "Thank you, Christine," Michael said, and Christine tilted her head and sighed a relief. He was safe. The following weeks, they frolicked beneath the sun, in a world all their own. But the world has its own laws, and flesh has its own limits. Michael once again fell into harm's way. This time he was attacked by a large fish, and Christine's heart sank as she flew down, seeing his lifeless body floating by the surface. She flew down and knew there was nothing she could do for him. She could barely communicate. Then he said, "I don't want to leave you, Christine." And as he began to sink, Christine said, "Stay with me. Please, you don't have to go yet. I'm right here. I can't reach you, but I'm here. I love you. Don't be frightened. We'll be together again. Hold on." She watched his body sinking into the blue, and as he sank, Christine could not bear it. She flew upwards higher and higher, as if she could somehow lift him with her, as if her rising could draw him away from the dark that awaited below. She beat her wings until they burned, until the cove and shore below was a tiny silver ring, and the wind was thin and sharp around her eyes. She climbed so high she forgot she was a bird. The air grew strange and clear, and the sea was a sheet of shadow above her. The sky opened like a great blue ocean, full of shining creatures. She sensed Michael was there, not as a fish, but as a kind of soul energy, and she recognized him. She heard him now calling to her, and in her grief and longing, she flew to him, and as she reached him, she became a burning light. As she merged with him, now neither were bird nor fish, but one star, longing to burn forever. My father fell quiet. Then I asked, "Did that really happen, Pa?" He said, "It happens every night. You only have to look up at the sky, Tom." "Now I'll tell you the other story, Tom," he said, "the one about the gold." He told me how some days ago down in the mines, he and his friend Lawrence found gold rocks. His friend Lawrence told the other men I was quiet about my gold. Lawrence never made it home with his gold. There were men waiting in one of the old chambers of the mine where the lamps don't reach and the air tastes like iron. They beat him and took his gold next morning. They said it was an accident, a falling rock. The foreman shrugged as the clerk wrote it down, and Lawrence's wife and child got a small envelope of money. I had my piece of gold wrapped in a rag at the bottom of my sack, and all I could feel walking home was its weight, not just in my sack, but on my shoulders and in my mind, like I'd taken a wrong thing out of the earth and it didn't want to come. Just then he opened his sack by the fireplace and he unwrapped a gold rock. It sparkled by the firelight like a piece of sun. He told me we were going to take the boat out tomorrow morning and drop the treasure into the sea. The next morning we walked down the shore, quiet. I thought what men had done for it and what they'd do again if they knew Father still had it. We rowed the boat out to sea, and the seagulls wheeled and cried above. We stopped rowing, and he took his sack and lifted the gold rock out. As the morning sun lit up like fire, it was bright and gleamed yellow. "I can't keep this, Tom," he said. "I think if I keep it, maybe we'd be living in a big house, or maybe I'd be lying in the ground next to Lawrence." He dropped the gold rock into the sea, and it began to sink quickly, and its fiery light began to dim in the blue abyss. "Mind this, Tom," his father said, his voice low but steady. "What you give up tells the truth of you, more than what you keep. A man's worth isn't in what he's got in his fist, but in what he can let go of and still be himself." He looked down at me, his eyes dark and wet from the wind. "Listen, Tom," he said. "The world will tell you to grab and keep and never let go. But if you chain your heart to what you own, you'll sink with it. All me life, I be going down the black mines for the dream of finding gold. But there's things that shine too bright, and they can burn a man hollow inside, Tom." Tom nodded, though the words sat heavy and not yet understood inside him. He slipped his small hand into his father's, feeling the roughness and the stubborn warmth, the way the man's fingers closed around his own, as if to say, "This at least I can hold." As Tom and his father walked home on Victoria Street, he had the feeling that something unmeasurable walked with them, lighter than money, stronger than stone, and shining in a way that needed no light at all. Years later, Tom sat with all the memories. He felt at last that love cannot be weighed like gold or sink like Michael, nor broken forever like Christine's flying heart. Love slips past death and distance, past the laws of time, to find itself again. What his father tossed to the sea was only metal, but what rose back to him was that stubborn way two souls keep meeting, fish and seagull, woman and man, father and son, friend and friend, long after the world says it's over. In the end, it is only this that matters. A warm hand to hold like the way his fathers used to feel, and the quiet knowledge that somewhere beyond the visible hours, Christine and Michael found each other again. He understood that these unmeasurable little things is the real treasure in life, and that it was here all along, waiting for him to see, feel, and live.